Downtown Wilmington, Delaware, the scene coming to you live tonight as some of the best professional and amateur riders prepare for the opening stage of the Tour DuPont bicycle race. It's the prologue time trial and individual test of each rider around a difficult course, which includes Monkey Hill in Brandywine Park.
Next rider up, rider number 102.
The beauty of the countryside of the mid-Atlantic states, the Tour DuPont, is back in town. The riders won't notice the railway crossings and the beauties of the babbling brooks as they search now for a winner's yellow jersey, the finest prize in world cycling. They will top speeds of 62 miles an hour as they chase around the countryside over more than 1,000 miles. They won't want to see too much of Monkey Hill, nor the close view here of Frankie Andreu. They won't even notice the children as they race towards towns like the Homestead, where the sprint is always fast. The riders are chasing the daily prizes and the final yellow jersey. And in downtown Wilmington today, the scene is set now for the opening prologue, the hors d'oeuvre to the Tour DuPont, where the riders will search for that first leader's yellow jersey. You can stay with us now here on ESPN for the whole of the coverage of this race, right through to its very end. Watch it at 6:30 to 7. Stages 1 and 2 start May 7. We go right through May 12 with the 7th stage of this race to May 15th with the 10th stage. The big finale will come to your screens on May 17, stage 11, the race conclusion and wrap-up. Hi again, everybody. I'm Phil Liggett, and yes, it's that time of year again, and we're with the 5th year of the Tour DuPont cycle race. Now, over the years, ESPN has covered plenty of cycle races, but none with the ambition of coverage of this 11-day event this time around. And I hope you stay with us throughout the 11 days and enjoy the pedal strokes made by some of the finest bike riders in the world. This, in fact, will see a record entry of top international cyclists. There are 119 of them. They're made up of 17 teams, 7 riders on each team. What do they face? Well, I'll tell you. They face the toughest course ever designed for this event in its 5th year. 1,085 miles. We'll visit the 5 states of mid-Atlantic. We'll finish at a new venue at Greensboro. We'll start right here tonight live in an old friend in Wilmington, Delaware with the prologue time trial. And joining our 1-hour program, we'll go in and out to watch that race and keep progress on the top riders in the world who will be on the course. Coming up next, we'll be back on Monkey Hill for the prologue time trial in the Tour DuPont. Hello and welcome back to our live coverage of tonight's opening prologue time trial of the Tour DuPont cycle race. It measures 3 miles around the streets of downtown Wilmington, going in both directions across the beautiful Brandywine Creek, starting and finishing between 10th and 11th on King Street in the centre of Wilmington. The highlight of the stage, undoubtedly, the cobble climb, which goes through the park, and it's called Monkey Hill. Now, one rider who has ridden 7 times the Tour de France and knows all about top-class cycling is Paul Sherwin. And Paul Sherwin can now tell us about the riders not only who can win this, but can also win the Tour DuPont.
Thanks, Phil. I think the major asset to try and win an 11-day race as tough as this year's Tour DuPont is that of recuperation, because it's going to be extremely difficult, especially with the tough terrain and the heat that's expected to reign over this year's event. The man who wins is the one who uses all his efforts intelligently, the man who can make every attack count. Well, Greg LeMond hasn't come to the Tour this year, so everybody's now looking at Raul Alcala as the man to win, because that final time trial is really to his advantage. If his challengers want to beat him, they're going to need the security of a 1-minute lead before we come to that final time trial in Greensboro. Well, today's prologue is not necessarily where they're going to win the race, but the race could be lost for many of the contenders. But we can't forget that in the last 3 races, the winner of the prologue has gone on to win the Tour.
Is Atle Volsvold. Atle Volsvold is the rider who has 3 times finished in the runner-up spot in this race, and that really is an unfortunate situation. He won the tough mountain stage that went up to the Massanutten Resort in last year's race, and that was a tremendous ride. He was the first rider, too, to the top of Wintergreen in 1991. He even wore the coveted yellow jersey for 5 stages in that year. But come the final day, Atle Volsvold has always ended up in 2nd place. In 1990, it was to Raul Alcala. And there was also defeat at the hand in the final time trial to Erik Breukink, the Dutchman. While Breukink celebrated, Volsvold was the big loser.
It was worse the year after, and I was second after Breukink. I felt I was strongest in the whole race, and then I lost in the last time trial. And last year it was okay because it was Greg who won. So I felt I had one leg in the first place too.
So Volsvold's entire career with the French Z team was told in that story. His role was that of the faithful lieutenant now to the legendary Greg LeMond. Atle had worked hard to help LeMond into the 1992 DuPont winners' circle. But now it was time for the Norwegian to move out of Greg's shadow and move across to the Subaru Montgomery team, on which he is the undisputed leader.
A lot of people having finished third in this event, having finished twice in this event, 3 times, would be frustrated. You know, what is it going to take? Is that any frustration with you at all? Or you?
And last year it was both Greg and me who could win the race. But sure, this year normally everybody should give 100% for me. So.
Well, there's no doubt either at Volsvold's climbing ability. He's a proven king of the mountains. But this year's Tour DuPont may be won in the final time trial.
It could be better with a shorter one, but I'm gonna try to ride very good in those hard stages. Then we'll see after these stages if I have the jersey or last day. It's just to give everything anyway, so and see if it can be good enough.
In the start house, the Norwegian mountain man with a lot of pressure on him this year. The leader of the Subaru Montgomery team, runner-up 3 times in this event. And in his eyes, you can see the concentration it's going to take to win this 1,000-mile race. It certainly is not going to be done in the first 3.
Volsvold's start was made at precisely 14 minutes past 5 this evening, knowing already that Steven Swart has finished with the best time thus far of 6 minutes 10.91 seconds for the course, a bettering by 8 seconds of the winning time by Greg LeMond last year. That's the sort of target now, Brian, that Volsvold has got to search for.
Second fastest time on the board has also been posted. Frankie Andreu of Team Motorola at 6:17, and both of those times faster than that of Greg LeMond, which was for first place a year ago. These riders are averaging about 10 seconds better than their own personal times. Here is one of the Soviet riders, the Russians on the course right there, who had left just ahead of Volsvold, and he is Igor Solovyev.
And that was Jeff Evanshine, the junior world champion, making his start too. All of the riders, let me remind you, start at 1-minute intervals. The object to set the best time on the evening. Let's go back out to Monkey Hill. This was earlier, and Volsvold is now making his ascent, and the crowd are enjoying the sunshine here in Brandywine Park.
The idea is to push a big gear over the rough surface there. Atle Volsvold perhaps choosing a gear just a little too big and really struggling up that climb. Now he's found his legs getting out of the saddle, trying to re-accelerate, but I suspect he's lost some time there on Monkey Hill.
So making his approach now up King Street towards the finish. Volsvold chasing the times of Swart and Andreu, 6:10 and 6:17 respectively, they have recorded, as he now finds the last little bit of effort to finish at the top of what is turning out to be quite a mountain here on King Street in Delaware tonight, in Wilmington, Delaware tonight, Brian.
Atle Volsvold also showing the effort of this short race, but very intense effort indeed needed to race only 3 miles against the clock. It's a full-out, dead-on effort with no help from any teammates, no drafting, no shelter anywhere. Thankfully, however, it's calm, and this year a lot warmer than it was 1 year ago. Volsvold heading for the finish line. His time will not be better than that of Andreu nor of Swart. In fact, he finishes at 6:30, 6:33. That's 5th best.
Out on the course now, the British professional road racing champion Sean Yates, and reminding that we are now in the Prologue time trial, and this was taken just a few minutes ago with the British champion in full cry, Brian.
Sean Yates, another one of the favorites because of his time trialing ability, and indeed he has proven over the years in this Prologue time trial that he is capable of doing a good time. He has been disappointed a few times, however, in actually accomplishing that feat. Sean Yates the noted time trialist of this Motorola squad, has come up short in the past. He's hoping to change that around here today.
Well, his immense strength, Brian, has earned him the nickname the Animal, and I think he rather likes it actually, because he can put this bike up at such a high rate of speed and he can hold it there. This is one of his favorite types of races. He once set the record for a time trial when he won the stage of the Tour de France in Pascal. And now Yates is trying to find that little extra speed to beat the best time of the day so far, which is still, by the way, Steven Swartz's time of 6 minutes 10.91 seconds. And in second place, Frankie Andreu, 6 minutes 17.04. And he is Yates's teammate. Yates's time, 6:15.78, not good enough. So Team Motorola has enjoyed great success in recent Tours DuPont and expects even more this season with the addition of former top amateur rider, the American Lance Armstrong. But Armstrong's first season as a pro didn't start out exactly as he'd planned.
Looking back on the beginning of the season, I think that it's obvious to me now that I haven't prepared enough in the off season. I think I took a little bit too much time off and maybe had a little too much fun in Austin in the wintertime and didn't prepare. So it's been a little inconsistent, and I haven't been real happy with that. But it's going to be an up and down season, basically, is what I'm saying.
And this very week, the ups and downs have continued to plague Motorola. Phil Anderson, 4 times a stage winner, has had to withdraw due to an illness. Anderson was not only the team leader, but the key contributor to Lance Armstrong's development. So Phil Anderson is not here. So Lance Armstrong will have to go alone.
It's a big loss. It's a big loss for the team, and it's a big loss for me, personally, because I think Phil, to me, means a lot. I think having him around, confiding in him, asking him for advice, feeling him out on certain situations helps out a lot of the time.
So with Anderson's absence comes both as an opportunity and adds increased pressure for the young American. But this Tour DuPont could give Lance Armstrong his day in the sun.
I think a lot of the other teams look to Phil to always be riding good because he is so consistent. Whether or not he's riding good or not, they're still looking at him. And now with him not here, they may shift their focus on Lance Armstrong. And you could say, yeah, it puts a little more pressure on me. Within the team, I think, yes, I do feel pressure. But as I said before, I'm a professional now, and that's my job. I got to come through.
And there's a last-minute chance for the Motorola team in the re-signing of the veteran Steve Bauer, who prior to this race was without a sponsor. A 2-time Tour stage winner, Bauer may have to adjust his focus from stage wins to the role of winning the race or supporting Armstrong.
Maybe I had more of a leadership type role a couple years ago. Now Lance Armstrong is riding very superbly. He's a super young talent for the team. And I think that we will probably key around him to try to get him to win the overall. So maybe that role has changed. But as far as winning bike races, you know, I'm still here and I'm still going to try and win, you know.
Well, Armstrong should be able to set the pace for Motorola through the mountains, but it is the final time trial that may be the true test of his own self-confidence and his ability.
I'm confident how I go uphill. It's funny because a couple years ago, I had no confidence in my climbing, and I was very confident in my time trialing. And it seems the last couple years, it's changed. Now I'm confident in my hill climbing, and I'm not so confident in my time trialing. But if I'm in position to win a race, I've said this all along, if I'm in the top 3 and I'm going for the overall victory, then I'll be able to time trial fine.
The next superstar to hit the start ramp, Olympic champion from 1984 in the individual pursuit, Steve Hague. He also holds the honor of having won the final time trial, the 1992 Tour DuPont, when Greg LeMond took the podium as the overall champion. Steve Hague, a short course distance specialist, very fast and powerful, launches himself up the final hill on a very, very fast time indeed. Steve Hague not disappointing the fans of the LA Sheriff Chevrolet squad this year as he betters the time of Swart with a 6:09.60. So we have a new leader right now in the clubhouse with half the field gone.
And welcome back to the Tour DuPont. We're with the Prologue. These are live pictures now coming to you from downtown Wilmington in Delaware. This is Davis Phinney, the sprinter, 4 wins under his belt this season alone. And he is now riding the 2.98 Prologue course. The nice left turn there as he leaves out of King Street now, heading down Brandywine Creek. He'll shortly be on Monkey Hill. And still the time to beat, Brian, is that superb ride about 20 minutes ago by Steve Hegg. As you said, the 1984 Olympic pursuit champion. He set a tremendous time, 6 minutes, 9.6 seconds, and that is going to take some beating.
That's a tremendous time. It is quite a bit faster, 9 seconds, in fact, better than the winning time of last year. Steve Hegg in first place, Steven Swart in second with a 6:10.91. Ron Kiefel of Coors Light sits third right now at 6:13.47. Sean Yates at 6:15. We saw him. And Frankie Andreu, who also went off early at 6:17. An interesting note, on the course, 3 riders ahead of Davis Phinney is Malcolm Elliott, who picked up a pair of wins the previous weekend, and there he is, live Malcolm Elliott, who won Saturday night in Athens, Georgia, lapping the field with 3 other riders, including Ron Kiefel, and won that race. Here's Davis Phinney once again on Monkey Hill in front of the big crowd.
That's right, and in fact, Phinney starting 3 minutes behind Elliott. We apologize for these breakup in pictures, but let me tell you, these pictures are coming in live, and they're linked via helicopters and satellites, and it's what we call a microwave link-up. And so these pictures beaming back to our commentary position. There is now Phinney giving it all he can on the climb of Monkey Hill, which he's always ridden on so well. But Malcolm Elliott over in the United States for the season and riding for the LA Sheriff Chevrolet team. And he is having his most fantastic season for a couple of years, Brian. He's found himself here. He loves living in California. He's a little bit of a surfer by heart. He's got a nice tan. And I think, you know, he's a real candidate to win this as he heads up towards the finish. So Elliott heading towards the line now. We don't know his time, obviously, because these pictures now are live. And Elliott is digging deep to try and beat the time of his teammate, Steve Hegg, who's done 6:9.6. And Elliott will know that because he was in the start house when Hegg came home with his time.
Malcolm Elliott with a pair of wins the previous weekend. He is really on a roll. He is the top-ranked professional in the United States. He has raced in the U.S. a couple of times previous in the old Tour of Americas that took place in Florida. Malcolm Elliott charging for the finish line on the uphill, being cheered on by Dave Lettieri, the team manager, from the car. We're looking up the clock, 6:07 and change. So we have a new leader. Malcolm Elliott of the Chevrolet LA Sheriffs racing team has taken the lead away from his teammate Steve Hegg. So the Sheriffs are 1 and 2.
Well, here's Phinney further down the course. You're right, Brian. That is a superb Prologue performance. He's done it before in big-time races. The time has been confirmed for Malcolm Elliott of 6 minutes, 8.46 seconds. And that is faster than his teammate Steve Hegg. But what it's done is give the Chevrolet the top 2 places on the classification at the moment. As the clock counts down and awaits the arrival now of Davis Phinney and perhaps Jörg Müller, the Swiss champion, or former Swiss champion, who started a minute behind Malcolm Elliott. But I'll tell you what, Brian, Jörg Müller will not put in a ride like that.
Elliott with a tremendous performance on the starting house right now. We have, getting ready to start at 35 minutes past 6, is Bernardo Gonzalez Mignano of the Kelme team. He is Spanish, and he launches out onto the course. Ahead of him and yet to finish are Müller and Jean-Pierre Hendricks of the Kalstrop team, and Davis Phinney out on the course trying to also join his teammates in the top 5. Remember, Steven Swart sits third right now at 6:10 and Kiefel at 6:13. Davis Phinney making one of the many turns on this Prologue time trial course. He is now paralleling the river on level ground and heading towards the downtown area where he will climb towards the finish line.
And his new target now is the time of the former British champion Malcolm Elliott, 6:8.46. Steve Bauer on the line now. He's waiting to make his start for the Motorola team, a candidate perhaps for a final victory this year in the Tour DuPont. The final countdown for Steve Bauer, the Canadian, back on the team after a very short recess indeed. And the story is he might even be riding in the Tour of Italy soon after the finish of the Tour DuPont. Bauer on his way as he heads down the ramp. A reminder that Elliott has set the best time. Phinney is still to finish. We'll take a short break, but don't go far away. The Prologue continues. The Tour DuPont Prologue time trial. Here's the current leader, Malcolm Elliott. He's finished literally moments ago, and he hasn't got his breath back yet. And he set the time as 6 minutes, 8.46 seconds. Here's the the arrival now of Davis Finney, who started 3 minutes behind him, and Finney literally finished a few moments before you came back to us. His time, 6 minutes 20.2, and that for Davis Finney is the 7th best time so far. So let's get back out on the course now. We pick up here Scott Mercier from the Saturn USA professional team. That's a new team this year, Brian.
And Scott Mercier is one of the real strong men on that squad, a guy that they are looking to for leadership. He has really come out of virtually nowhere in this U.S. team. He was pretty much an unknown rider not too many years ago, but that has all changed very definitely right now as Saturn has picked him up as a professional, and he is riding extremely well. Big, tall guy, good time trialist.
And he's got down very quickly into that streamline position using those Scott handlebars that Greg LeMond made famous when he won the Tour de France, using them in the time trial back in the late 1980s. And now everybody seems to ride them. The gear shifts, by the way, for these funny bikes, as they're called these days, are on the brake levers. And you saw Scott reach for the left-hand, the right-hand brake lever there when he switched his gear.
The Saturn team is led by Olympian, two-time Olympian Bob Mayansky, who is out of Wisconsin. Mayansky, you may remember, finished 4th in the Olympic Games in Seoul, Korea in 1988, and then had an early breakaway in Barcelona in 92 as they were trying to set up Lance Armstrong for the win. And when time came for the setup, Armstrong wasn't able to deliver, having a very rare bad day. Now, Scott Mercier didn't start cycling until July of 1990, and he made a very rapid rise to the top. He was spotted by one of the national road coaches who invited him to the Olympic Training Center, and well, the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, let's hope he makes a rapid rise to the top of Monkey Hill, Brian, because he's on the cobblestones. He's not a very big rider, very slightly built, so he's going to get a rough ride up here.
He's quite tall, 24 years old, lives in Telluride, Colorado, so he's come down from altitude, at least from his home, to race here near sea level in Wilmington, Delaware in the Tour DuPont. Scott Mercier of Saturn.
Now he's struggling there. You see his right hand changing gear again. He's trying to find his rhythm very, very quickly. A few deep breaths over the top of Monkey Hill, because it really does sting the legs and you've got no time to settle back into your stride. It must be immediate. This is a very cruel test of truth. It's what the Belgian people always call the race of truth. And so Scott Mercier head now towards the finish. Let's have a look at Raul Alcala, the red-hot favourite to win the Tour DuPont. He won the race when it was called the Tour du Trump back in 1990. He's now on his bike and set to go down the ramp. He's due to depart at precisely 18:41, and that's what the time is.
Raul Alcala on course, and as we said at the top of the show, he has quickly gathered a big following among the people here who try to pick the winner of this race in advance. And well, Alcala certainly comes with all the tools. He's a great time trialist. Witness that by the fact that, well, he has won a number of races in time trials and does extremely well every time he's called upon to do so. He won the Tour de Trump 2 years ago, or 3 years ago in 1990, by winning a mountain stage. He cooked Vladislav Bobrik, the young Russian rider who was leading the race at the time, and delivered one of the great lines in all of bicycle racing, at least in this event. He says, "I cooked Bobrik in the kitchen," meaning the Devil's Kitchen, that incredibly tough climb in the race that year.
Yeah, up there in the Catskills, Brian, and that was a tough race. But I feel a little bit sorry for Bobrik, but Alcala is a real professional. He's looking for a second win in this great race.
Scott Mercier continues to ride on the downhill run out of Monkey Hill now. Mercier regards himself as a climber and patterns his style of racing after Miguel Indurain. Well, I suppose one could do worse for a role model.
Alcala again rapidly getting into his stride. He won a great time trial stage of the Tour de France a couple of years ago. Well, among the racers enjoying the beautiful countryside outside of Wilmington this week was a new team, WORDPERFECT. It's an American sponsor who's harnessed a Mexican thoroughbred to lead the charge. After the demise of his former Dutch PDM team, Raul Alcala is now happy to return to this race for the first time since his 1990 victory. And he's got a great squad around him to support him and hopefully carry him to victory as well. Raul Alcala, the first Mexican rider ever to win a stage of the Tour de France, which he did in Francorchamps in Belgium.
We bring here a good team. That's why we have all responsibility, all the pressure here. I hope we give a good results in some stages here. I know we come good teams like Spanish teams, also the American teams. Motorola, they're riding good. Also, they try to win the race. But I hope the luck is coming our side, you know.
Well, it's a skill, however, and as an outstanding climber and time trial specialist, Alcala is a real threat. In the 1990 Tour de France, he posted an impressive win in the critical stage time trial. And a grueling individual race it is, much like the final leg of this year's Tour de France. For Raul Alcala, the Tour de France and the Tour DuPont are similar races.
Yeah, this race is similar to the France, you know. There's long stages, prologue, and the team time trial in the beginning of the race. It's close, similar. It's very close to the Tour de France, but the rider is different, you know. And Pro 5 is also a race with amateurs. It's also good, you know, to be riding with the amateur riders. It's similar. It's really similar, you know. I think they try to make it like the Tour de France, small Tour de France, you know, but has to be. I think a day is 200 kilometers each, you know, each stage. Maybe is the average and the every day is 200 kilometers a day. It's very long.
Indeed it is, and one of Alcala's new teammates is Eric van der Aarden, a sprint specialist. The flying Belgian returns to the Tour DuPont for the first time since 1989, when he won 4 stages in this event, a record which has been equalled only by Phil Anderson. They call him the Rocket Man.
I was here once for about the race in Trump, and I won 4 stages, and that's be one of my greatest things I do.
Eric van der Aarden, he may look happy here, but believe me, he can sprint so quickly. He could be a winner.
I could try maybe 5, but I don't know. If I am in a good shape and everything is okay and I'm be relaxed and everything is going like I wanted, then everything is coming. It's going good. And
so that is Eric van der Aarden, and he's not making his effort right now, but his teammate Raul Alcala is. He's still out on course heading home, while over there we can see Malcolm Elliott still chatting away. And he is the current leader of the Tour DuPont, and it's the LA Chevrolet team, Brian, have got the top 2 positions overall at the moment, but there's still some real stars to come. One of them right before you now. See how he gets on. Don't go far away.
Ahead on SportsCenter, the A's and the Rockets' red glare. The envelope please the NBA's Rookie of the Year. And Lennox Lewis defends his heavyweight title. Bob Lee and Jack Edwards, SportsCenter at 7 Eastern.
And welcome back. We're with the prologue of the Tour DuPont. When you left us, Raul Alcala was heading up towards the finishing line. And according to the clock, he is so close. He approaches that line now to the best time of the day, which is Malcolm Elliott, 6:8.46. There's a real chance now. Alcala can shave this by fractions of a second. Raul Alcala, who won a great stage in the time trial in the Tour de France a while ago, now registering the fastest time so far, 6 minutes, 5.95 seconds. Raul Alcala is here to win the Tour DuPont if he has anything to do with it, Brian.
Alcala at 6:05.95 moves Elliott and Haig down into 2nd and 3rd place respectively. Steven Swart and Ron Kiefel of Coors Light are now 4th and 5th. And there is Raul Alcala live following his finish. And he knows now that he is the man to beat in this race. And there are but a handful yet to go. On the podium now is Steven Rooks of Festina, a man who is not as noted for his time trial ability, but is a feared climber.
And indeed, the first Dutchman ever to carry off the title, the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France. But he has just seen on his right shoulder the arrival of Raul Alcala with the best time, as he gets the countdown now to start his try around the circuit here in Delaware, in Wilmington, Delaware.
So Steven Rooks, the 1988 runner-up in the Tour de France, King of the Mountains, and a man that raced in this event in its very first year, didn't do well, took ill that year, and all but dropped out of the race. Now Steven Rooks comes as the leader of Festina. And on course we have
David
Mann of Coors Light.
Now, David Mann, who's threw a little surprise our way at the start last year. It was much colder last year here, and a lot of the riders were shivering before the start. This is why the times this year are so much quicker. On average, the riders are going 8 seconds quicker around the same course that Greg LeMond won on this circuit 1 year ago.
Just to give you an idea of how much faster times are this year, Dave Mann's time of 6 minutes 30 last year was good for 10th place. This year, it wouldn't have gotten him anywhere near the top 20, maybe 30 riders, in fact.
Well, this is a short burst for Dave Mann. He prefers the slightly longer time trial, and of course he won the longer time trial, beating amongst others Greg LeMond last year. But he wants to limit his losses if indeed he can't set the best time, but he's giving it a real good show of effort on the climb here at Monkey Hill. Remember, Raul Alcala has really now thrown the spanner into the works. 6 minutes 5.95 seconds. It's a time to remind everybody watching that the rider who's won the Prologue time trial these past 3 years have gone on to win the Tour by the end. And I wonder if Alcala will like to remember that right now.
Dave Mann wore the yellow jersey in this event last year along with his teammate Steve Swart. In fact, they were tied to the second, but by virtue of differences in hundredths of second, Steven Swart wore the jersey, and then Dave Mann wore the jersey rather, and Steven Swart took it from him.
So Dave Mann is out on course. Alcala is home with the best time of 6:5.95. There's still more top riders to come, including Lance Armstrong. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Tour DuPont Prologue time trial. We are live. We're waiting now for the start of Lance Armstrong. Just to remind you that the best rider so far is Raul Alcala with 6:5.95, and this is Lance Armstrong. He's just made his start.
Lance Armstrong, the leader by inheritance of Team Motorola. We have already chronicled the fact that Phil Anderson, who would have been the leader of this team, is back home in Europe, ill-diagnosed with pneumonia. So Lance Armstrong, 21 years old, El Toro de Tejas, the Bull of Texas, is the man who will lead Team Motorola right now. And he is the last one of their number off the starting ramp. There are but a few more riders yet to go, and if anyone is to beat the time of Raul Alcala, it could perhaps only be young Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong had a win right out at the start of the season up in Italy there, the Trophy L'Aiguilla, and that should give him the confidence for the rest of this season.
Quick update on a couple of times that we didn't give you before we left. Steve Bauer sitting 6th right now overall with a 6 minutes 15.14 seconds. And well, we also saw a lot of Scott Mercier. His time was good for 12th when he finished, and it was 6 minutes 22.21. So right now Alcala leads ahead of Elliott and Haig of the Chevrolet LA Sheriffs, followed by Swart and Kiefel of Coors Light. Then Steve Bauer, top placed Motorola rider, along with Sean Yates, and they are in the 6:15s, while the winning time right now, or the leading time, is 6:05.
So a Mexican on the top, followed by a British rider, then an American, then a New Zealand rider. That's a real international lineup right at the top. Now Armstrong approaching the turn here onto Monkey Hill. He wants to keep his rhythm and dig deep. He knows the Tour DuPont. He knows this circuit. He's ridden it a couple of times before, and the crowd are going to be shouting for him all the way up here. Well, as we see Lance Armstrong on the climb, let's get down to the finish and see if we can find Dave Mann. He must be coming in, and here he is. Dave Mann now digging deep because he can produce a good time here as he races towards the line. His teammates have finished well. Steven Swart has done a good ride, but I think that Dave Mann might be a little bit off the leaderboard, Brian. He's aiming for that 6:5.95. If you can catch a glimpse of the clock to the far right, he's way off it. He's almost 10 seconds out. A bit more, 6:16.63. 8th best time for Dave Mann as we join Lance Armstrong now as he's just come over the top of Monkey Hill.
Lance Armstrong chose a very good gear on his climb. He's turning it over extremely well. You can see the aerodynamic position that he is very good at here. Using the aerodynamic helmet, the air flows over his back and off the bike cleanly. He's using the graphite 3-spoke wheels there, the newest innovation, and riding very strongly indeed.
So as we go to the podium here now, we've got Subaru on the start line. This is the national champion, Bart Bowen. who finished his season with a great victory in Australia. And I was there, and my goodness me, he's a strong rider, this man, as he now takes the start. I don't think, though, Brian, this really is his type of course. We would expect to see Bart more in action in the mountains.
Bart Bowen could wear the Stars and Stripes jersey of the reigning professional champion, a rider coming the other way to finish. And here, once again, is Lance Armstrong out on the course, probably halfway through his ride. He started at 52 minutes past the hour, and we're now at 55.5. So he is 3.5 minutes into a ride expected to last just over 6. Lance Armstrong riding along the river there, slight climbing area as he heads towards downtown. He is now in Brandywine Park.
Well, technically a difficult course, and you almost saw Lance Armstrong misjudge that corner then. Here's George Hincapie up on the start house. Just one rider to go after him.
George Hincapie, the heir apparent for the leadership of the U.S. amateur team. Remember, a year ago, it was Lance Armstrong who was the superstar of this squad. Now George Hincapie, who was in a breakaway, by the way, with Armstrong in Atlanta for the First Union Grand Prix. The two of them worked right up until the end. They were caught in the final 500 meters, and that race went to Malcolm Elliott.
So Hincapie is on course, just Jelle NIJDAM to make his start. The last of the 119 men to go in the prologue. So we'll come back. And as you rejoin us here, the closing stage of the Tour DuPont opening prologue time trial. This is Lance Armstrong as he makes his final sprint now towards the line.
Lance Armstrong needs to finish within the next 20 seconds in order to take the lead, and that is within his grasp as he climbs the final hill up in towards the downtown area. He has to know how close he is to the winning time or the leading time of Raul Alcala. 6:05.95 is the time to beat right now.
So Armstrong approaches the finishing line. The clock will tell the truth as he comes very close. He's looking for time. Listen to Brian says he won't make it. Well, if we can see the clock, and we can. Very close, Brian. Second best time, 6:07.03 for Lance Armstrong. Second tonight in the prologue time trial.
A little over a second behind Alcala. That'll be an excellent start for the Tour DuPont.
Lance Armstrong cools down and has the second best time in the Tour DuPont prologue. Jelle NIJDAM is still to finish. Raul Alcala is top of the leaderboard.
Last man off the starting block, Jelle NIJDAM, a prologue time trial specialist and a man that many would reckon would win this event in its first outing. And indeed, Alcala knows with only NIJDAM on the course, his lead is tenuous at best.
Well, they're both on the same WORDPERFECT team. Jelle NIJDAM is a specialist. His father was a world champion as a time trialist in 1961. Jelle is no exception. He's a thoroughbred athlete as well. Not even the slopes of the hill up King Street was to thwart him. He was to set the fastest time ever seen in a prologue time trial in the Tour DuPont. He was the only rider to beat 6 minutes. And his time on the line, 5 minutes and 55 seconds. And there was still time to wave to the crowd. Jelle NIJDAM was the champion thus far of the Tour DuPont. Well, Jelle NIJDAM really did put in a great ride, but he is a specialist over the short distance. In fact, in 1987, he won 6 such prologue time trials, including the prologue of the Tour de France. The big question, Brian, is can he win the Tour DuPont by May 16?
Well, the history of this event for the last 3 years has been that the rider that won the prologue won the whole event. And with all due respect to Jelle NIJDAM, I don't think that's going to happen in 1993. The real battle shapes up behind him with Raul Alcala and Lance Armstrong. I think those two are going to be in the background for a while, fighting the real war. But stealing the thunder for at least the next several days are going to be the sprinters. We're going to start seeing the Eric van der Ardens, Davis Finneys, Malcolm Elliott's, Uwe Pressler, the young German, Frankie Andreu from Motorola. Those are going to be the guys battling it out up front and taking a lot of the headlines for the next several days.